Wolf back. What's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Thrilled for our first ever of 2022 Waiver Wire Tuesday show. But we are kicking it off with a very special guest here because the most important waiver wire story of week one and possibly the 2022 season will be the 49ers running back situation. And you know our go-to guy for all things 49ers is Grant Cohn, host of the Cohn Zone, publisher of all 49ers FN, part of Fan Nation on SI.com. He has come on by. He nailed Eli Mitchell for us in the preseason last year. He always seems to have his finger on the pulse of this backfield. Grant, thank you so much for taking the time in this busy NFL season. How's it going, my man?
Going good. My pleasure. Happy to be here, man. So what are we talking about today?
We got to start at the top, as mentioned, that 49ers running back room outlook. I know you always have a good grasp on what's going on here, and I'd love to know, with Eli Mitchell now set to miss about 2 months of the season, the vast majority of the fantasy season, what's it going to be? Is it going to be Jeff Wilson? Is it going to be Shenanigans and some other random fifth-round rookie is going to take over? Who knows? And that's what I'd love to know from you. What's your take on how this backfield's going to look?
Well, Shanahan can be a little stubborn, and sometimes he won't necessarily go with the best running back, but the guy he trusts the most. Seriously, like he gave Jeff Wilson Jr. 9 carries, got 24 yards, averaged 2.4 yards per carry. And afterwards, he was like, well, I trust Jeff. Okay, you trust him to give you 2.5 yards a carry. Like, frankly, Trey Sermon's better than Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson Jr. was really good a couple of years ago, but he tore his meniscus and has not been the same since then. He was like a really good one-cut runner. Now he's a no-cut runner. So he may get the carries at first, but I don't think he's going to keep the job. And then it's going to come down to 2 rookies. Unless the Niners bring in like Kareem Hunt or Marlon Mack, and that could happen. But right now they drafted Tyrion Davis-Price in round 3. He was inactive week 1. They also have this undrafted rookie free agent, Jordan Mason, who was active week 1, but didn't get any carries. So if Mitchell's out, both should be active. I have no idea who's going to get the first carry or whatever. But from what I've seen, Jordan Mason's the real deal. And I'm not a scout, but I think I'm right about this. And PFF gave him a really high grade in the preseason. So far, everyone likes him. He's got good vision. He's decisive. He runs really freaking hard. He's 225, 30 pounds, runs about a 4.5. I like him. I think when he gets his chance, he won't give it away. So if I had to pick someone up, I'd pick him up. But if you could pick up multiple guys, hedge your bets, why not? I really think Jeff Wilson Jr. is not worth your time. I think Ty Davis-Price has potential. He's faster than Jordan Mason, runs hard. But from what I saw, he's like no vision. Like he's constantly running into his blockers, whereas Jordan Mason's finding daylight constantly. So I like Mason. Maybe it'll look different. Sometimes preseason football can be a bit of a mirage. But those are the 2 guys you got to look at. Make the decision for yourself. I'm going Mason.
Really interesting there. Jordan Mason, as you mentioned, the undrafted rookie, did have 94 yards on 19 carries in the preseason. It just feels like the Shanahan guy. Everybody's going all in, talking about Jeff Wilson as the number 1 pickup. And it makes sense on paper when you see that he led the team in rushing just 2 years ago, 10 total touchdowns. When he started, he had 6 starts that year. He was a top 12 running back in 4 of those 6 games. So he looked great 2 years ago. There were some rumbling that he seemed to have his burst back and things in training camp. But have you seen that? Like, are you buying the fact that Jeff Wilson's back to 2 seasons ago, or has he just not looked good to you at all?
He looked terrible week 1.
Yeah.
While everyone else looked good. So I don't know. I mean, it was raining, but Mitchell looked good. Debo looked good running the ball. He didn't. So they'll probably give him one more chance because they trust him. Week 2 against the Seahawks. But if he looks bad again, I think they'll have to get someone in there before they lose that game and go to 0-2. So he's got one more chance. And if it's not him, the next man up, Jordan Mason's getting his chance eventually. I think everyone likes him. Pick up Jordan Mason. Do yourself a favor. Again, with Jeff Wilson Jr., he tore his meniscus. Not the same guy. Jordan Mason's fresh, healthy, young. And here's what you need to know about. He's at Georgia Tech. He lost his starting job because they got another running back who has since transferred to Alabama as their starting running back. So he didn't get beat up by a slouch. He's good. And he's got fresh legs. Damn, go watch his carries from the preseason if you don't believe me. Runs hard.
He really does. No, I was playing some preseason DraftKings like a true degenerate, so he was definitely in my player pool, and I loved what I saw out of the kid. The last back then to tackle is Tyrion Davis-Price, their third-round pick. Similar to Trey Sermon, it almost seems, with its just sunk draft cost at this point if he can't beat out this undrafted rookie. Has he shown any type of impressive stats to you? Do you think it was like a special teams thing that led him to be inactive, or what's the status on that guy?
They say it was a special teams thing, but what are they going to say? Well, the thing with Trey Sermon, what I saw when I really watched the tape, he wasn't running hard. So maybe he didn't want to be on the 49ers, or maybe he doesn't want to be in the NFL, but he was not running. He would get hit and driven backwards. Like, what? Like Ty Davis-Price isn't that guy. Ty Davis-Price runs really hard. And I like that about it. And he's fast. He's not super fast, but he's about a 4.5. It's just, it feels like half the time or more than half the time he runs into his own blocker. And the guy's like, oh, dude, what are you doing? So maybe and again, you're watching him like with second stringers, and Jordan Mason was with the third stringer. So maybe when it's starters and Kyle's game planning and Trent Williams is out there and you had some really good blockers, maybe they can give Ty Davis-Price some clear lanes and he'll look good. But to me, like, what you're hoping is that he can get to the edge the way Mitchell could, the way Mostert could. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know that Mason can. Mason isn't super fast, but to get to the edge in the NFL, you need like 4.4 speed or better. And I don't know that he's got it, but they seem to think that he has. He hasn't proven it. If he can do it, he's got a role in the team, because it's almost like a free 6 yards on the Niners when you're running behind, at least when Kittle's healthy. He's not there yet. He's not there yet. So I'm reserving judgment on Ty Davis-Price. We'll see.
Really intriguing. So we'll wrap it up. I know I wish I could get the whole 49 preview from you, but we'll wrap it up. If you were a fantasy football manager and you were ranking these guys for your pickups, 1, 2, 3, how would you rank them right now?
That's a good question. Mason 1, Davis-Price 2, Wilson 3, but that's going to feel a little uncomfortable when Wilson's starting week 2. You know what I mean? You're going to be like, damn, Grant told me not to take Wilson. Well, Kyle trusts him. He had a meniscus tear. He averaged 3.7 yards a carry last year. Sermon was better. Sermon was at 4.1. They cut Sermon. Now last week, Wilson's at 2.4. Man, even if they trust him, they can't justify giving him carries if he keeps not producing. So I'd say go with the young guys.
Really interesting. Well, Grant, I thank you so much for your time popping in again on this busy NFL season to give us your backfield predictions here. You've been right every single time on this backfield when you've come on before. Fantasy owners, pay attention here, because maybe Jeff Wilson, the number one pickup on everybody's list right now, is fool's gold. Grant, thanks again so much, and best of luck the rest of the season, my man.
No. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks again
Cheers
to Grant Cohn for coming on. Always bringing the heat, always bringing some of the best takes that you can ask for here. I hopefully can get him on again soon and hear about what he thinks of Trey Lance. Is the panic button going to be hit? All that good stuff. But Wolfpack, we will now dive into the rest of the waiver wire. I want to spend extra time, though, get an extra inside look at the 49ers backfield, because it is the most important one of all. I trust Grant with everything 49ers. So this does have me shook a bit, because I did have Jeff Wilson right at the top of my list, but an insider like Grant telling us to be wary of that he really thinks Jordan Mason's the highest on his list, but also the team's list. And he did look damn good to anybody that's a degenerate like me and played preseason DFS. You know that name of Jordan Mason. He did look by far the best running back they've had, other than Eli Mitchell, these last couple seasons. So we will see if Wilson does actually regain the old form that made him an absolute league winner down the stretch of 2020. He's got that upside, so that's why I still don't want to ignore him, and he is going to get the first crack. So if he looks good in it, Seahawks an easy team. I mean, we saw the zone game of the Broncos last night running down their throat. So Wilson could start hot and not give it up, but it does sound like at least we got to give significant more consideration to Jordan Mason. So check that out, Wolfpack. If you miss out on Wilson, or maybe give a second pause to burn in your number one overall priority, or $50 of your waiver wire FAAB, any of that stuff, I would caution there for Jeff Wilson. Alrighty, Wolfpack. So the rest of the show, just to talk about it, we will go through my top 20. Usually I do top 15, but in week 1, we've got 20 names I want you to consider. There's always more potential pickups at the beginning of the season. If you're catching this on podcast form too, and you're thinking, I wish I could have had this a day earlier, thanks for giving me the advice after waivers lock. Well, you could have, because we are live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time doing your waivers on YouTube. So check us out over on YouTube if you've missed out on that. Last bit of housekeeping before I get into 2 through 20 on my waiver wire pickup is our usual preview show, sit start show from Thursday night will be moved to Wednesday this week. I have open house at school. I cannot miss that, sadly. So ultimately, check that out there. As we go through the rest of these waiver wire pickups, thumbs up would be so greatly appreciated. If you enjoy what you're hearing, it helps us get out to more people, like, shares, retweets, all that great stuff. But thanks again, Grant Cohn. Check him out at Grant Cohn for all the best 49ers takes. Let's move into number 2 on my list here. Well, actually, I do always like to give you the first check. And now this is probably where you roll your eyes and say, duh, not in my league. But you'd be shocked to see some of these guys that are actually out there in leagues. Darrell Henderson, 77% roster. That needs to be 100, as does Michael Carter. Both were the lead backs on their teams, kind of surprisingly. Carter, 10 rushes, 60 yards, 7 receptions for 40 yards, 19 overall opportunities. The heartbeat of the offense certainly got worked that way. He saw all of the goal line and short yardage work. He has that on lock with 4 short yardage carries, 3 goal line carries. Encouragingly, Breece Hall did get all the 2-minute drill stuff, but still, Michael Carter is definitely the running back one here, as is Darrell Henderson. 81% of the snaps, 76% of the carries, 83% of the running back targets, 16.1 weighted opportunities according to Scott Barrett, whereas you saw 0 points from Cam Akers. So double check that if those guys are out there, I would blow all your FAAB to pick them up before you look at any of these other names. But now we'll get into everybody that's under 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Some of them will be right on 40%, and again, might not be there in your leagues, but there's definitely plenty of names on here that are 1-2% rostered that I think could make a huge difference. As always, let us know what your questions are. I will hit the mailbag at the end with, should I drop X for Y, all that good stuff. That's another reason why, if you're listening to the podcast, I can answer your questions live over here on YouTube every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Let's get into it. Jarvis Landry, 43% rostered, needs to be much, much closer to 100 after he leads the Saints with 11 targets, 28% target shares, 7 catches, and 114 yards on the day. All 3 led the team. Yes, I get that you have a team with Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. He's not going to Jarvis Landry always lead this team in production, but he was a huge magnet, a huge safety valve for Jameis Winston. Really took off. The crazy thing is this offense really didn't do anything in the first half. Winston had, I believe, 50 passing yards in the first half. So it was really a tale of like 2 halves. And Landry produced almost all of this in the second half when he started to take off. He wasn't just the low A-dot dink and dunk guy that we've seen in Cleveland and Miami the last couple of years. He was getting down the field. I'm not saying Chris Olave type of burner speed, but he was getting a more vertically stretched route tree. He showed great chemistry with Winston. Again, when the pressure was on, this was Winston's go-to guy. And I don't think it's, and a lot of people think it's Thomas and Olave a tier above Landry. Well, again, he outplayed both of them in terms of production. Obviously, Thomas had those 2 unreal touchdowns too, but check your waiver wire for Landry, as especially in PPR leagues, but even in half, this guy is going to be a viable wide receiver 3 all season. Jamaal Williams, another guy that's owned in most, probably a lot of these leagues, but still 48% rostered. Go check it out. It's not just that he had 2 goal line touchdowns in week 1. He did dominate all the running back snaps at the goal line. 1 carry went to Swift on the goal line, 4 went to Jamaal Williams, and he punched in 2 of them. Yes, that's huge, but it's not about that. It's more so about the handcuff upside that Jamaal Williams would drip in. We saw this line might be top 5 in the league. The holes that Swift was running through were absolutely massive against a not bad Philadelphia defense against the run last year. And we've seen Swift miss 3+ games in both professional seasons. So this gives you kind of that flex upside juice with Jamaal Williams, but also the ultimate handcuff with benefits potential there with him. So check out Jamaal Williams if he's out there. One of the best players you can stash for some usability, but also some real upside. If anything goes down, would probably be a top 10 running back. And don't just toss him out because last year he got some starts and he didn't do anything because Swift got hurt. He was hurt himself, Jamaal Williams. I'm telling you, James Conner type upside, like 16+ touchdown upside. He already has 2 touchdowns on the NFL season. The first one of the year went to him. Tons of good touchdown upside as is, and just league winning potential if anything happens to Swift, as it has in both of the past 2 seasons. Now, got to bring up at 4 and 5, the Washington Commanders passing attack. I cannot believe I am saying this, but Carson Wentz actually looked pretty decent. Of course, you had your ridiculous boneheaded interceptions, and he almost blows the game only to bring him back. It was the Wentz roller coaster experience. Either way, it produced plenty of aerial pie for all of these guys to eat. Yes, it's a bad Jaguars D, but let's dive into it. Jahan Dotson would be my number one pickup on this team, even though Curtis Samuel was a little more involved. I think Dotson is a ridiculous talent. He had 3 catches, 40 yards, and 2 scores. One of them just being like I am NFL monster already type of catch. Only 5 targets, only 12% share. That's the concern here, is he wasn't overly high used, but a talent like this isn't going to just see 5 targets week in and week out. This guy is going to command 8, 9, even in a crowded offense, 10 targets come midseason. This is the Amon-Ra, the type of breakout rookie later down the stretch. You just saw everything you wanted to see. He truly has top 20 wide receiver in the league within the next couple of years. I love the guy. Just an absolute dog type of player. In college, we saw some of those plays immediately. That all being said, Curtis Samuel might be the better guy for immediate volume if you need it. 11 targets, a whopping 11 for 55 yards, 1 score. Also getting 5 carries for 17 yards. That's 16 total opportunities at the wide receiver position. Last time we saw Curtis Samuel, pretty much nothing last year. He did have 1 top 12 receiver game. He only played like 2. So, I mean, he was nice in the one time we saw him. But ultimately, 2 seasons ago, reunited with Ron Rivera, who gave him 118 total touches. That was second among all receivers just 2 seasons ago, behind only Stephon Diggs in 2020 with that type of usage. He has 4.31 speed. He was a kind of high running back receiver hybrid out of college, out of OSU. He can do it all. 80% routes was great. 11 targets led the team. He got it done. 1.3 average depth. The target is just kind of like the PPR, just stink and dunk. But, man, that's what he's most dangerous at. Again, 16 opportunities after leading the NFL in 3rd down catches in 2020. This guy can get it done. So, for long tail upside, the better prospect, of course, in my opinion, is Jahan Dotson. I think this guy could really light it up. But Curtis Samuel, if you need some immediate efficiency and just potential for season long, I do want to give an honorable mention to Logan Thomas, 6% rostered. He's not my favorite tight end. We'll get to a couple more I like more than him on the waiver wire, but I do really like him moving forward. Target on 20% of his routes, goes 3 catches for 45, and that was at about 60% snap rate. As he gets healthier, I think that rate goes back towards 100. I mean, the guy played the most snaps out of any tight end just 2 seasons ago before his injury. I really like Logan Thomas. He looked a lot smoother than I expected in his early action, so I think we just see his work get ramped up even more. If you need a tight end, this guy was a consensus top 10 guy entering last year, and he could break right back into that top 10, even with all these mouths to feed. Again, Carson Wentz, over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm shocked by it, but this team looks like they're going to air it out with him. Plenty of aerial pie for multiple mouths to be sustained. Moving on to number 6, see some call-ins coming in. Love to see it. Definitely join in the call-in. That will be a guaranteed answer. I'm going to answer everything that we get here, of course, on the show. I will do it after I get through all the names, so please hang out. Hopefully you can still hear me while you're in the weight log over there. Let's move on to DJ Chark, 40% rostered. Again, like a lot of these guys, you might be laughing. Not in my league. But at 40%, there's 60% of leagues without DJ Chark out there. Scan your league, double check if you are one of them. 4 catches, 52 yards, and a score on 8 targets. That was second on the team behind only ASB. That is nice to see. Good for nearly 22% target share. He ran it out on 92% of the dropbacks in every snap player. Down the road, when Jameis Williams is back, Chark is probably going to see his production eaten into pretty heavily. But I could also see them just going 3 wide because of how good he's looking. He was one of the stars of camp. We didn't really see it in Hard Knocks, but a ton of beat writers writing about how he was dominating team scrimmages and all that great stuff as a great fit for this offense. And 3 of Chark's 8 looks went for 20 yards or more down the field. That was the 3rd most in the NFL. So viable deep threat that you really should get your hands on if he's out there in your league. A viable deep threat that's probably out there in your league if Chark is not, is Robby Anderson, a whopping 8 targets, hauls in 5 of them for 102 and a touchdown. He's only 11% rostered. And speaking of FAAB, I actually kind of forgot that this is a FAAB show too. So just to kind of recap, Jarvis Landry, Jamaal Williams, I think are right around 15, maybe even $20 if they're out there. I think both Commanders guys are right around 15 or so bucks, as are DJ Chark, $12 to $15. Robbie Anderson, this is on like a $100 budget as well, also worth 12 to 15 bucks. So 102 yards and a score. And yeah, he didn't do much until the 4th quarter, but that's how he is. He game breaks with a 75-yard score. And ultimately, it's the volume that we saw. 29.6% target share, more targets than DJ Moore. This resembled the role we saw just 2 seasons ago, his first season in Carolina, Robbie Anderson, where he outscored and out-targeted DJ Moore, who everybody loves, everybody wants it to be DJ Moore. I would, rather have DJ Moore than Robbie Anderson, but the gap in our expectations for them seemed to be insane. Way too overvaluing DJ Moore and way too undervaluing Robbie Anderson. Just 2 seasons ago, which again, this is what I saw this weekend, looked a lot like that role. He was 8th in the league in targets and receptions. He was the wide receiver 20 in fantasy compared to Moore, who was the wide receiver 24 and finished 19th and 30th in targets and receptions. So he was the high Robbie Anderson, more utilized receiver just 2 seasons ago. I wouldn't be shocked to see that continue this year now that he's back with a new quarterback, Baker Mayfield. And whether that continues or not, either way, he should greatly benefit from Baker Mayfield, who had tons of deep completion, deep accuracy. For all his qualms, he actually ranks 3rd from 2018 to 21 in deep accuracy, according to PFF, behind only Tom Brady, just ahead of Pat Mahomes. Baker Mayfield was number 2 in his deep accuracy completion percentage. We saw a beautiful strike to Robbie Anderson down the field. Conversely, of course, Sam Darnold was the last in deep accuracy across those 3 seasons as well. So this could be a huge boon for Robbie Anderson. Got going completely under the radar at only 11% rostered. I think he's well worth $12 to $15, and I don't think you're going to have to spend that much to get him, a guy that can wreck a week for your opponent every single time. Boomer bust, but I really like him. Josh Palmer, though, if you're looking for just an immediate 1-week streamer that I feel great about, like any of these receivers I've talked about, I think this guy, Josh Palmer, is guaranteed for a big week, too. That's because Keenan Allen suffers a hamstring injury. He is doubtful for Thursday night football against the Chiefs. 1, a bad secondary, and 2, Josh Palmer has thrived anytime he's been thrust into a starting role, a top 2 role. Just last year, there's only 3 games he saw 6+ targets. In those games, he put up 17.6 points, the wide receiver 16, 15.3 points, the wide receiver 22, and 14.5 points, the wide receiver 32. Top 36 wide receiver in all 3 of his starts last year. I think we immediately get that type of production. Sure, it was a little bit concerning how much Herbert spread that ball around with no receiver seeing more than 4 targets other than, of course, Keenan Allen before he goes down. I still think, given the fact that he ran 51, he played 51 snaps, 26 routes in the second half after the hamstring injury, that was by far the most, next to, of course, Mike Williams. So I really like this guy. Yeah, sure, DeAndre Carter. He was the direct replacement in 3 receiver sets. He caught the touchdown. He had more production. I definitely think that's more fool's gold, and I would heavily lean to Palmer, who was running as the clear-cut wide receiver 3 throughout camp, one of Herbert's favorite targets throughout camp. Just a great talent that I think is going to shine on Thursday Night Football, a definitely viable streamer. Moving on then to Rex Burkhead. As gross as this is to say, 12% rostered, he outcarried Dameon Pierce. 14 carries to Rex Burkhead compared to 11 for Pierce on a positive game script where they should have ultimately been hammering Dameon Pierce. The perfect time to go with it. Nope. This team decided, let's go to Rex Burkhead for over half the carries, only 40 yards. Didn't look good. And none of this recommendation is going to be a bet on talent. It's a bet on volume because he also saw 5 catches, 8 targets, 22% target share, only 30 yards on those 5 catches, but still playing 71% of the snaps compared to 29% for Pierce in a script that should have been very, very favorable to Pierce. Highly concerning for Pierce. I mean, long-term, of course, there's some upside there if he can regain this role. But the fact that Burkhead's out there for 100% of the 2-minute, 65% of the dropbacks, and again, 71% of the total snaps, that's scary. That's not something you want to be having to bet on. Khalil Herbert coming in at 41%, worth about 10%. All these guys I'm just talking about here, Palmer, Burkhead, and Herbert, I think are worth about $10 of your budget. But when you start to get to this like bottom 10 of the list, usually these are guys you can kind of sneak in for $1 or $2. Everybody's going to be throwing the money on Jeff Wilson, who, again, going to Grant Cohn, who was just on the show. If you're catching up here, make sure you rewind and catch the beginning where Grant Cohn, 49ers insider, predicts that Jordan Mason is actually going to be the more valuable back here. Definitely makes you have some pause if you were planning to unload the wallet on Jeff Wilson. He recognized Jeff Wilson will get the first crack, but still more impressed with them. But let's move on to another running back that you could potentially add in Khalil Herbert. 45 yards, nearly doubled up the yardage of Montgomery on less than half of the carries. It also gets the goal line carries, both of them weirdly going to Khalil Herbert, none of them going to Montgomery, who's been a bull in the past. I'm not sure exactly why they all went to Herbert, but they did. And Herbert converted, got one touchdown in there. He's really still seems to be a handcuff with benefit type of situation. Montgomery did play, 70% of the snaps. Seemed like he was more of the guy, but Herbert was far more efficient. This kind of mimics the reports we were seeing in camp that Herbert was a better fit for this new zone scheme they were putting in. He certainly looked better in this week. I'm not trying to get too much into the action on that Bears just monsoon we saw against the 49ers. But still, Herbert was impressive, certainly more impressive in the mud than DeMont was. And remember, he had 3 starts last year, Khalil Herbert. He was top 12 in 2 of those 3, posting 19 and 18 fantasy points in his first 2 NFL career starts. Looked like a flat-out baller. And if anything happens to Montgomery, which it has every year of his career, you're going to be getting some real nice insurance with Khalil Herbert. Moving into some tight ends, we talked about Keenan Allen being out, and that should open up even more routes for Gerald Everett. He caught 3 of his 4 targets, 54 and a score. At tight end, you can do a whole lot worse than one of the most explosive passing attacks with now some volume up for grabs. He was at about 65% route participation, so there is a little bit of a tight end committee going on here, but that was really in the first half. We saw like Xander Hovarth catch the first touchdown again, infuriating Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, and Gerald Everett owners is whoever the fuck Xander Hovarth is. Nonetheless, Everett did come through with the 3rd touchdown of Herbert's day and ultimately looked athletic. They were moving him. You could see the motion that this guy was in all night. Plus, he wears number 7. I mean, that just kind of looks sexy out there. I think Everett, you can do a whole lot worse at tight end, but you might even want to consider over him Taysom Hill, 12% rostered right now. And it's so gross to say, but even without his boyfriend, Sean Payton, on the team, Hill remained highly involved, 81 yards on 4 carries and a touchdown. But you're not trying to bank on 4 carries from your tight end every week and think that's going to get it done. Yet he gets tons of that red zone and especially the 10-yard line or closer rushing volume, 11-yard score after a 57-yard rumble down the field. That's where he's going to get his damage. And really at tight end, after the top 5, 6, you're kind of banking on a touchdown or bust. I bet you Taysom Hill getting the goal line carries still in this offense gives you a better shot at a touchdown most weeks than other than the top 6 tight ends, most of them. So ultimately, plus you get the upside. Like if anything ever happens to Winston and they decide they didn't want to go with Andy Dalton, big hypothetical that I don't expect to happen, but there is the off chance you get a QB at your tight end spot. We saw that happen a couple years ago, and it was the ultimate cheat code. So that exists in addition to just the every single week upside at the goal line carry type of thing. So it's gross to say, but man, Taysom Hill really does have like high-end tight end 2, low-end tight end 1 upside moving forward in this offense. That's my first 13 guys. I'm going to wrap up with my last 7 of my top 20. But before we do, I want to promote the guys you see on the banner there, our sponsor for the month of September. They are awesome. It's No House Advantage. They're changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. You can play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning $250K plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, and earn points for correct picks as you climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. I just did on Sunday, and it was lovely. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x or more your entry, depending on what promotions they're running, if you hit all your picks. But on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league. Of course, NFL, biggest for us, but NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, whatever you feel best with, it will be there. You can do cross-sports collaboration here. Again, we recommend NFL. We have picks every week on the website for who to go to. But sign up now with promo code RSJ at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match of up to $25. They match up to $50 for me, so it might even be more than that. But make sure you check out No House Advantage today. Experience daily fantasy sports redefined. Love this final line because it's so true. It's not how you play, but also where you play. You don't want to miss out on this. Sunday's contest last week gave $50K to first place and was only half full. It's wild, the overlay that this site is offering with huge guaranteed prize pools. Go check out, again, No House Advantage, code RSJ. Help your boys out. Show the power of the Wolfpack would be so greatly appreciated. And check out a great gameplay with tons of available money. Alrighty, moving into the rest of the waiver wire, folks. We've got some quarterback help for you. There's a lot out there. I was shocked at some of these ownership numbers here. Matt Ryan at 43%. He's my QB1 right now in my main league, and I don't even hate it. 352 yards and a touchdown, most yards on the day, if I'm not mistaken, from a quarterback. And he should have had 3 touchdowns. Alec Pierce dropped one. Paris Campbell, he had 2 touchdowns dropped. This box score could have gone from 15 points to 23 points in the blink of an eye. Unfortunately, for those drops, it did not do so. But man, he would be the immediate number 1 QB ad on everybody's list had he been. He gets the Jags this week. We just saw Carson Wentz carve them up for 4 touchdowns. I think Matt Ryan, who already showed some great things, bounces back and actually converts some of those touchdowns for a 300-yard, 3+ touchdown day. Love to see it from Matt Ryan. He's my number 1 quarterback ad. If he's not there, I do love Jameis Winston. Tough matchup against Tampa Bay coming up here, 46% rostered. But man, that second half, after I thought it was even better. I gave him 50 yards in the first half. It was 24 yards on 5 of 10. They were really playing ultimately so conservative, trying to protect Jameis Winston, and they finally uncorked him in the second half. And what did we get? A final stat line of 23 completions, 269 yards, and 2 scores once they finally let him loose. I do think that's going to be tougher sledding this week against the Bucks, but still, I really like this offense. I love the 3 weapons. I love how good Jarvis Landry looked. So double check your waiver wire. Is Jameis Winston out there? Plus, you get to root for Jameis. Is there anything more fun? Who doesn't want Jameis to succeed? Unless you're in that division, we all love Jameis Winston. The hard-hitting analysis there. But Carson Wentz getting Detroit fresh off carving up the Jaguars for 313 yards, 4 touchdowns. Of course, a couple trademark, 2 interceptions, but still, he looked very impressive. Some of the throws he made in top, 15 quarterback type of territory. And ultimately, it was the number 2 scoring quarterback of the week, given that impressive performance. Gets Detroit, who we just saw give up 38 points. I think they're going to be a weekly smash spot for whoever's at quarterback because Detroit can keep up. They put up 35 points themselves. That's a team you always hammer that over on. I expect Wentz to be another great streamer, a high-end QB2, low-end QB1 if you're looking for a guy. The last one I will shout out is Marcus Mariota. The only reason he's not higher is he gets the Rams. We did just see Josh Allen bury them. What I loved about Mariota, not the passing, only 215 scoreless yards, but even with such an abysmal passing performance, he put up over 20 fantasy points because he had 12 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. That is elite. Like Trey Lance type of Konami upside that nobody wants to acknowledge. He had more points than Trey Lance for whatever it's worth out there, scrambling on 11% of his dropbacks, accounting for 22% of their rushing attempts. I mean, this is Konami. This is Konami. Marcus Mariota has it. Certainly a streamer to consider. Again, I don't love the Rams matchup, but he gets Seattle next week too. And the Rams, I don't know if they are as scary as we once thought. Some good quarterback streamers for you to consider. Also available in a ton of leagues, only 4% rostered, is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Shocking stat here. Credit J.J. Zacharyson, the late round QB, with this one. 6 wide receivers have 35% target share in week 1. Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Wild. Absolutely wild. 11 targets, hauls in 6 of them for 60 yards. The final stat line, not overly impressive, but man, is that usage insane. In fact, the next closest in targets was Kareem Hunt with 4. So DPJ, target hog, alpha, beast. Love to see it. It's Brissett, so it's like, how valuable is that? 11 targets are 11 targets. I don't care who they're coming from. I don't know that this continues, but really a lot of it was chain moving work, quick outs. Like he's known for his speed, his field stretching ability, and he still has that, but that's not going to really happen with Brissett. So the fact that he was this heavily used with Brissett, plus you mix in Watson, one of the best deep passers coming back in, 10 weeks. Yeah, it's a long time to wait, but you actually have some usability even in the meantime. So it's not like you're sitting on nothing for these next 10 weeks. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, if you have more flexibility and you don't need to start somebody right away, but you want some upside, I think Garrett Wilson, 21% rostered, is a guy you have to look at. Entering the draft, was my actual favorite prospect, and he showed a lot of the reason why, getting open at will, it seemed, making nice, strong hand catches, like great separation throughout. He showed all the reasons I loved. Thing I didn't love was that he only participated in 56% of the routes, but he did command 23% of the target share, even when he only ran about half the routes. So impressive in that sense, and he deserved all the targets that he got. Now, I don't know that we're going to consistently see 59 pass attempts. Flacco better hope not, because his arm might just fall off on the field and he just crumbles. But all that to say, I love the player. I saw all the traits that I really liked coming into the league. It's just a matter of, is the quarterback play going to be good enough, whether it's Flacco, whether it's Zach Wilson, for it to matter? I don't know, because Amon-Ra St. Brown had it done with Tim Boyle down the stretch last year. So I do think Garrett Wilson, again, out-targeting Eli Moore despite only participating in half the routes. That's something you got to take note of, and certainly worth a potential stash. Now, this guy was looking like he might be the number one pickup of the week. That's Jaylen Warren at 5% rostered right now. It was looking like Najee might miss 3 to 5 weeks, and then you'd be getting the next Steelers workhorse, but not meant to be, because Najee is coming back as early as this week. And there's also the point to consider. That line looks atrocious, maybe even worse than they were last year. And I didn't think they had anywhere to go but up. They went downhill last year. So even if Warren is to make some starts in the year, is it going to matter behind that line? I do think so. Because, one, we already saw Najee score, volume beast. Tomlin's workhorse has averaged 26 opportunities per game, except on like the rare instances where somebody gets hurt, becomes like that's happened before. But we've seen like D'Angelo Williams, James Conner, these guys come in, Jalen Samuels, random nobodies have come in, get 20 plus carries, 3 plus receptions, and just feast. Warren has a nice 3-down skill set. We saw it all preseason. The team, in fact, moved him up to number 2 running back, even though he's an undrafted free agent, because of how impressive he was. He's the only running back to touch the field once Najee was out, the only running back to touch the ball once Najee was out. I do think, some people speculating, well, no, Benny Snell will be. I think it's a Tomlin way to have a workhorse, and they really like this Jaylen Warren kid. So he could come into some serious value if Najee's injury gets sparked up again, or at any point Najee misses time. One of the best handcuffs you can roster right now. Wild stat, Kyle Phillips had a 29% target share this week, highest of any rookie in this entire class. Raise your hand if you were betting on Kyle Phillips to lead this rookie class in target share to begin 2022. Don't think that's many of you, but pretty wild. 6 catches on 9 targets, 66 yards. Again, similar to Donovan Peoples-Jones. Insane stat line? No, but really encouraging usage. And he was wide open at will, the slot maven. Like, that's kind of what Tannehill loves, is those quick hits, high percentage type throws. He was a beast. He had 32 yards on 3 catches in the final 2 minutes to set up that 47-yard attempt that just did not go through. So he was the man. Like, he is the guy that Ryan Tannehill's looking for on third down, looking for in clutch situations. I would not be shocked, given the fact that Robert Woods had 1 catch. Treylon Burks had 55 yards, looked better than, the reports we were seeing out of camp, but still. Kyle Phillips might actually lead this team all year in receiving. That's not impossible, given how pathetic this depth chart looked like. Hooper looked like a bag of shit. Definitely someone to consider at 1% rostered. I keep forgetting to go through the FAAB. All the guys I'm mentioning here are like the bottom of this top 20. Better than you're probably going to see in the top 10 of most weeks, though, because it's week 1. We're learning stuff rapidly. So you can probably sneak these guys in for $1 or $2, maybe nothing. Maybe wake up tomorrow early morning and pick these guys up. So like Garrett Wilson, Jaylen Warren, like Donovan Peoples-Jones, no more than $3, I'd say, on these guys, even though I could see them paying that off a whole lot more. I just don't think you're going to have to pay much more. Last couple here. Sterling Shepard, one of my favorites always. If you've been watching this show, you know I love this guy. 71 yards and a score in his first action back since tearing an Achilles after 7 games last season. There's a horrendous track record of running backs coming back from Achilles, but we've seen multiple receivers, Demaryius Thomas being one of the latest ones, come back as if nothing's wrong. And Shepard, with a 65-yard run and catch score, showed that he looks pretty damn good. Who knows if he's back to 100%, but I can't imagine they'd be rushing him back if he wasn't. So I think we can assume this is Sterling Shepard. Now, last year was a disaster. There's no question about that. But his last 5 full games for Sterling Shepard. This is insane. 8 catches, 10 targets, 112 yards, and a score, the wide receiver 4. 9 catches on 12 targets, 77 yards, and a score, wide receiver 11. 7 catches, 9 targets, 113 yards, and a TD, wide receiver 8. 9 catches, 10 targets, 94 yards, wide receiver 21. And 10 catches, 14 targets, 76 yards, the wide receiver 19. In short, an absolute target hog. And yeah, of course, this was only 4 targets, 2 catches this last week. Tony only played 7 snaps. Who knows if that's going to improve? It should. I mean, he's an insane talent. I don't know what's going on there. It's clear that you saw Dable hugging Shepard. The team chemistry is vibing with this guy. Certainly a viable receiver to be stashing right now. And the last name I want to bring up is Eno Benjamin. 8% rostered right now. Another guy worth $1 or just that click button when you wake up in the morning. Saw 4 rushes, 28 yards, 3 catches, 33 yards. Like very, very good efficiency. Granted, a lot of that work did come during the second half of the blowout. Still, he was the only other running back to touch the field other than James Conner. Darrell Williams did not play a snap. So whereas the preseason, it's like, is Williams is getting in for the score? What's kind of happening? It's clear Eno is definitely the running back too, and we all know how injury-prone James Conner is. So handcuffed with benefits here. Ultimately, very efficient. Like 2 things that I wanted to see out of Eno Benjamin. One, is he actually any decent? This is the best he's ever looked, like by far the most explosive Eno Benjamin we've seen, because he looked like absolute shit. There was nowhere to go but up. But man, like this was definitely encouraging performance. And 2, is Darrell Williams involved at all, or is this going to be like Eno behind James Conner? Now, if Conner goes down, I do imagine Williams would get some carries, get some burn, but still nice to see. And, just to again reiterate at the top, that 49ers outlook, we had Grant Cohn come on and say Jordan Mason, 1% rostered, is his favorite bet to lead the 49ers in yardage in the Mitchell absence. He does think Jeff Wilson will get the first crack, but he's highly unimpressed with what he's seen. He does not buy some of the reports other guys are saying about Wilson regaining his burst and looking back to 2020 form. I still lean Wilson because he is going to get the first crack. As much as I love Grant and I take everything he says very, very seriously. You got Eli Mitchell right for us last year. And I was like, I don't know if I can go Mitchell over Sermon in the draft capital. I wish I had listened. So, probably take Grant's opinion here, not mine. But I just think Wilson getting the first crack against a bad Seahawks run D, he might get that hot hand. But I do really like this Jordan Mason kid. He had 19 carries, 94 yards in the preseason. Definitely someone to check out. Tyrion Davis-Price obviously has the draft capital, but he has not done anything. Been outplayed by Jordan Mason as these guys compete for the backup role. Some other honorable mentions too. Dontrell Hilliard has 2 receiving touchdowns on 3 catches, 61 yards. Obviously not sustainable. The fact that he only ran a route on 20% of the Titans dropbacks, it's pretty ridiculous that he scored 2 touchdowns running only 20% route rate here. But that's what the guy does. He's a scorer. He's a gritty guy. He played a lot of the third down snaps. And if something ever happens to Derrick Henry, we've seen Hilliard shoulder the offense and be great. So another handcuff with benefits. And then Devin Duvernay. I never can get on this train, and maybe I'm just an idiot. Please remind me how dumb I am in the comments. He has 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's 30% rostered already. Very, very efficient day. I still have a hard time trusting really any receivers there other than maybe Bateman and the tight ends. But Duvernay, Lamar Jackson goes out of his way to praise the guy. He always hypes him up. Certainly looked the part, deserving of the hype this last week. I'm teetering on fool's gold as I am with O.J. Howard. I don't buy those 2 touchdowns. I don't think he's any good. I think O.J. Howard's washed. I guess if you're tight end desperate and you miss out on Taysom Hill, Gerald Everett, and Logan Thomas, okay, maybe look at O.J. Howard. But those are 3 guys I would look well ahead of him. All righty, Wolfpack. Whew. We are through 20 pickups and a handful more. We had, again, Grant Cohn. If you missed that, rewind to the beginning, get his takes on there. The last thing that I want to wrap up with is defensive streamers for week 2. I didn't have my banner. 2, you got to look at, well, 1, check out rotostreetjournal.com. We have a great article from our guy, Keegs, on the website about the defensive streamers. I know a lot of people, though, watching waiver wire shows are most interested in this. And again, if you're catching this on the Fantasy Fullback Dive, our wonderful podcast, and you want to get it live before your waivers kick off, check us out on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Join in the conversation. Get your questions answered. But let's get into these defensive streamers for week 2. My number 1 is the Cleveland Browns, 26% roster. They get the Jets, who just gave up 3 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery while only scoring 9 points against Baltimore. This was Baltimore losing some of their top corners throughout the game. 6 of those points came in garbage time. They were abysmal. The Browns, they let up 24 points. Not great, but they did have 4 sacks and an interception last week. Myles Garrett's always ready to destroy the quarterbacks, and this Jets offensive line looks absolutely pathetic. I think the Cleveland Browns destroy this team. They are by far my number 1 ad. Not far behind, though, is the Steelers at home against the Pats. Now, if they had TJ Watt, they'd be my number 1 ad for sure at defense. They were the highest scoring defense in week 1 facing the Bengals, racking up 26 fantasy points on 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, another touchdown. They were a beast. Without TJ Watt, I can't imagine they'll be quite as disruptive, but they'll also be facing a far worse offense against the Patriots team that gave up a touchdown to Miami. On the defensive side of things, they were just inept. Mac Jones might also be out with a back injury, at least less than 100%. Who knows what's happening with this offense? As a diehard Pats fan, I am sick to my stomach with what we did on Sunday. I also am trying to fire up the Steelers anywhere I can. And last but not least is the Bengals, 45% roster, so the most owned out of all these defenses. And they didn't have a great week 1, 2 total fantasy points, 1 sack. Not great. But they're getting Cooper Rush and the anemic Cowboys. Without Tyron Smith, they surrendered 4 sacks and gave up an interception, scored just 3 points, surrendering 13 fantasy points for Tampa Bay's defense, even without them scoring a touchdown. I think the Bengals can swallow Cooper Rush. They're a better defense than they showed against the Steelers. I think they wallop the Cowboys. I would rank them again, Browns, then Steelers, then Bengals for my top defensive streamers of the week. Alrighty, Wolfpack, the moment you've been waiting for, the reason you're probably here waiting for me to shut up is we will hit all your questions. But remember, the call-in feature is great, and we already have one lined up with Mr. David Campanelli, a regular on the call-in line here. Great to see you, brother. How are we tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Wolf. How are you today?
Oh, not bad, my man. Exciting stuff, an exciting waiver wire. Lots of good ads here. Busy, and I love it. How could I help you out tonight, my dude?
Geez, I got 4 questions, but I don't want to take all your time. I threw them in the comments already. So I'm going to throw the one that's been eating away at me since last night.
All right, let's hear
this. This is a trade proposal that I'm contemplating. So I have Stafford and A-Rob. It's a standard Superflex league.
Okay.
I have Hurts as my starting quarterback. I have Stafford in my Superflex.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about, and I have Jamar Chase, trading Stafford to the guy who has Burrow because he has Cup. Is this a complete overreaction with Stafford, or am I thinking it's the smart move to sell Stafford low and buy Burrow low?
So you're saying swap Stafford for Burrow?
Straight up.
I would absolutely do that, especially with your team build right now. I think you can sell it like you're saying. Let's stack it up because you got that elbow concern with Stafford all year. That might linger. It might not, but even still, I feel like Burrow is by far the better option. Even with 4 turnovers last week, he still ultimately put up like 24 fantasy points. So you can only imagine that's going to get better. Yeah, if it's 1 versus 1, I absolutely would rather have Burrow. No doubt about it.
All right. Thanks, Wolf. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll look for your other comments, David. Thanks again for calling in tonight, brother.
Thanks, Wolf. Have a great one.
You too. All righty, Wolfpack. Let's get back to the mailbag. Thanks again, David. And anybody else that wants to call in, the link is up there for you. I will answer. It's 7:49 here. I'll go till 8:15. I imagine that's plenty of time to get all your questions. But if not, then you know where to find me at Roto Street Wolf. One last call for that thumbs up button. Continue to help us grow Wolfpack. Get out to more people. Show your boy some love. It would be greatly appreciated. Like, shares, retweets, all the good stuff. Thank you again so much for being here on your Tuesday. Let's get those waiver wires set. First waiver wire Tuesday. Smell the panic. Oh, yeah, I agree. There's definitely some panic. There's an interesting balance. And that just kind of reminds me of a thought, David, I probably should have prefaced this whole thing with, which is you never want to overreact to week 1. But the people out there being like, any type of reaction, oh, it's overreaction. Oh, it's an overreaction. You're reacting too much. Shut the fuck up. We're getting more information because it's week 1. you are a moron to get that information, especially for backfields. Like, you learn a ton about running back rotations and usage. And of course, these things can change. I get it. But still, to get new information and then just not react at all, I think is dumber than overreacting. Both are very dangerous. It's obviously a tricky dance. And especially week one, where I think the information is like, what's real, what's not. It's so hard to discern. It's 1 week of data and you don't want to freak out. But you got to trust your eyes. You got to trust your gut. Like an example, I moved Saquon Barkley up to the running back 2 on my rest of season big board, over and available at roastrejournal.com. It, quote unquote, is an overreaction. Maybe. He looks like a fucking stud. Like, you just see somebody play, and you're like, that's going to be the cheat code of 2022. That guy's going to be a monster. Justin Jefferson's going to be a monster. We already do that, but they're just next level, like better than everybody else around them. And I'm not going to sit back and be like, well, I had my pride. He is an elite player getting elite usage. And of course, there's injury concerns. But it's like, okay, so Christian McCaffrey, injury concerns, elite player, not really elite usage in week one, weaker play caller, kind of weaker line it looked like too. So like, why am I that crazy to move Saquon above him? That's just a wild thought. If you feel like I'm insane, please comment away. Check the rest of season big board. It's there for you on the website. But I had to go on a quick rant about how, yes, you don't want to overreact, but underreacting or doing nothing based on the new information we have is equally as stupid. All righty. Sorry for the rant. Let's get to your questions. I'll give you guys an extra few minutes because I needed to do that rant to make sure I get through all these. 14-man, full PPR. Who do I start? Chark, Woods, or Olave? My other two are A-Rob and Dotson. I feel like you got to start A-Rob, but I'm guessing, are you saying you're starting Dotson and A-Rob already? So, yeah, I would probably go Chark. I feel like that Washington-Detroit game is shaping up to be a just hideous shit fest, and I like that. I'm worried about the Saints facing the Tampa Bay defense. Woods look like an absolute steaming pile of garbage. So I'm going Chark here. At least you get the upside of like a deep score. Schultz and Tonyan at tight end. Would you drop either for Taysom or Everett? It's a real tough one because it's so hard, David, to know what Schultz is going to look like without Dak. Everybody vastly downgraded. I would consider, I still want to see what he looks like with Cooper Rush, because oftentimes those like big bodies over the middle of the field are the best. But I want to give him a week. Now, if he sucks with Cooper Rush next week, I wouldn't be opposed to cutting him. Tonyan's a different beast. Now, looked pretty good, and it's clear A-Rod needs some targets here. I probably sit, but man, the upside of Taysom's like real nice. Why is he on benches? Lazard, is he worth dropping? No, Rodgers looks so lost without Lazard that I want to keep him there. I might rather have Samuel than McKenzie, though. I like McKenzie. Obviously, I was so high on him entering the year, but Crowder was more involved than I wanted, more involved than I expected. I kind of think I'd rather have Samuel than McKenzie here. I would consider Taysom over Tonyan, but I cannot say it with full conviction, and I'm sorry to hedge here, but that's a gut call. It's a trust call. I probably stick it out with Tonyan and see how this relationship evolves over the year. I'm thinking about buying low on Javonte. Hell yeah. I mean, I think 10 catches, what was it? 12 targets? Like, loved it. The one thing that concerns me is, I mean, the guy's ripping off 10 yards a pop. Why was Melvin Gordon even sniffing the field by mid game? I don't get it. I would probably rather have Javonte than Lenny. I mean, man, though, I wouldn't really want to sell Lenny after 21 carries, like 80-something% of the snaps. It was workhorse Lenny that was running back 4 last year. I think Rachaad White will gain some usage as the year goes on, Dr. 2-3, but they're neck and neck for me. I loved what Javonte showed. I guess the issue for me is for Javonte to hit the ceiling, you assume rational coaching. And Nathaniel Hackett, if nothing else, looked like a complete, utter fucking moron last night. So I might stand on Lenny here, and then you're going to watch Javonte go for like 3 touchdowns and 200 yards against the Texans and then say, fuck you, Wolf. It's tough. It's really tough. They're truly 11 and 12 in the rankings for the rest of the season for me. Lenny's a little bit safer. Javonte's the absolute ceiling that can like win it for you. Whereas Lenny's like definitely not going to lose it for you, and it could also win it for you. Gun to the head, I lean Lenny rest of the season, though, just because I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett to do anything smart after last night's fucking pathetic performance. Does drop Matt Ryan? Nah, I like Matt Ryan. As much as I did like Mariota, I mean, Matt Ryan was 2 drops in the end zone away from having a really good stat line, one of the best of the weeks. So, and yeah, I mean, you don't need like Mariota you're going to always be starting Hurts and Stafford probably anyways. So you don't want a guy that could get benched any given week. Thiene, what's up? Need to free up space for waiver wire ads. Olave, Burks, thinks of grabbing. I would drop Burks over Olave. I just believe in Olave a little bit more as a player and an overall offense. And I'd rather have Curtis Samuel than Burks, I think. I would also consider dropping Robert Woods. Like, I don't know that Robert Woods has to be kept right now. I think you drop one of the Titans guys. It's up to you who you go with. I feel like Woods is the lower ceiling guy, though. I mean, how pathetic was that? 2 targets? Like, didn't look great. I would be dropping him, I think. Everett or Higbee going forward? Both good offenses. Higbee had, some of the best route participation of any tight end this week. I think if you're looking for a long-term solution, it's Higbee. If you're looking for just a guy this week, I love Everett against the Chargers. Against the Chiefs Thursday Night Football, no Keenan. But I think Higbee gives you a little bit more stability through the year. I really like Everett. You guys are asking some great questions tonight. This is tough. I'm gonna go Everett. I really like that Chargers offense. Trade proposal. This was the one we already went over for you, David. What's up, Giuseppe? Why are you not calling in? Get your face back on here. Now, let's see. One of my leagues, James. Oh, yeah. James Robinson, way over Jeff Wilson. 2 touchdowns. That's a guy you want to burn 80% of your, I don't know that there's a limit to FAAB. Unless you're not allowed to pick guys up and if you spend everything, because there are some leagues, once your money's gone, you can't pick anybody up. So if that's the case, I wouldn't do everything, but otherwise, that's the type of guy that can swing your league. He looked very good. He did not look like Cam Akers. He looked like he had all explosiveness, 2 touchdowns. They didn't seem fluky. He's clearly going to be very involved, and he's so good. He's just a good player. I love James Robinson. Absolutely would prioritize him over Wilson, and I'd spend minimum $50. Whatever, your league more than me, but whatever it's going to take. And there's the call-in link again, guys. If you want to get called in and onto the stream, come join us. Looking at you, D India. Get your fucking ugly mug on here. Sup, Wolf. Would you drop Bobby Trees for Dotson? I would. I don't think Bobby Trees is a must-hold. I was really high on him coming into the year. I thought he could see 120 targets. Maybe I regret it. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe he just needs to get his health under him. But I think Dotson's a young ascending stud. I want young and ascending versus old and declining. That's how I look at it. So, yeah, I would go for Dotson there. Would you rather Dotson or that's a really tough one, Giuseppe. If you need the immediate boost, it's Samuel. He's going to definitely be more targeted here on these next few weeks. But I think Dotson long term is could be looked at as a top 15 receiver by the time the season's over. I think John Hansen, one of my favorite gurus out there, the old fantasy guru now at Fantasy Points, he's on record of saying that Dotson is going to be more valuable than McLaurin this year. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I love this player. I think he's phenomenal. And I think, only 5 targets was a little disheartening, but the fact that he scored 2 touchdowns on 5 targets tells you how good. That catch, that second touchdown, the guy's a fucking man. He is a beast. I really, really like Dotson. So if you have the patience for it, I'd rather have Dotson just to kind of stash and keep seeing how it develops. And Wolfpack, again, that thumbs up button does continue to help us grow. If you have not hit it already, please consider doing so. And of course, I see some new names in the chat here. Subscribe, help the channel grow. It would be so greatly appreciated. We'll be hitting multiple streams every week, helping you set it with start questions, getting your waiver wire set, all that good stuff every single week. And a reminder that we'll be live tomorrow, not Thursday this week. So all you regulars out there, I have open house night for school, so I cannot be live on Thursday. It breaks my heart. It's such a good game. I wish I could be having a couple beers and getting ready with you guys. We'll do it tomorrow. I'll do my best. Obviously, we'll have some news that's going to not be out quite yet compared to Thursday, but it's better than nothing, I hope. I got to be there for you. Get your early set start questions. Get you your week preview a day early. Hudbot. What's up, Hudbat? I am worried. I am terrified of CeeDee Lamb. I bumped him very, very hard on the rest of the season big board. I think he'll be okay once Dak is back. But honestly, even with Dak, 2 never seem to get on the same page. Maybe CeeDee's just not that guy. We've all always been so hyped up for him, and he's had these flashes of being the next great guy, but maybe that's just not him. Maybe he needs a number 1 to draw number ones so he can actually do his thing. I'm not convinced he's anything better than a great number 2. He's a great number 2. I don't know that he's an alpha. I mean, he saw 11 targets, caught 2 of them. I don't know if that's an alpha. It was tough all night, but like real true alphas figure it out and they get it done. He didn't. And now you have Cooper Rush throwing, so way worse than that. One of the biggest followers of week 1, in my opinion. I'm very low, and I would sell low. Like I'd be trying to get what I could for him at this point. I would say Michael Carter definitely to Jeff Wilson Giuseppe. Again, like Wilson starting, yeah, but as Grant Cohn, and if you missed the beginning, rewind to the beginning after the stream gets off. Check out what Grant Cohn has to say. Not that he's always 100% right, but he's always had a good pulse on the backfield. Called Eli Mitchell last year, called that he's going to be above Trey Sermon, and sure enough, week 1, Trey Sermon's inactive. He says Jordan Mason outplayed TDP all camp. That's why he's active, and he thinks as soon as Jordan Mason finally gets the shot, he's going to flash the most, and Shanahan knows that, as soon as he sees it, he's going to go with his guy. So unless Wilson's very impressive right from the bat, maybe he could be against the bad Seattle defense. Maybe he could be. But if he's not, like Jordan Mason could take over right away. You blow your load on Wilson. He doesn't do anything. I have Wilson in a lot of leagues. I just drafted him as my last player on the bench for this exact situation. And I'm not sitting here like wicked excited about it. I would not be burning all my money or my number 1 priority on Wilson. Could he? Sure. I mean, again, he had 6 starts 2 years ago. He was a top 12 running back in 4 of them. Like the guy was elite. But since that injury, he hasn't looked that good. And Grant said he doesn't buy the fact that people think he's looking better this year. Like he didn't look that great in the rain game. Other running backs did. Yeah, I would definitely have Michael Carter. 19 touches. I mean, the heartbeat of the offense, it was actually true. Do you still have faith in Njoku? I'm with you there in the sense that like Conklin would let him run more routes for sure. He was definitely in blocking far more than we'd like to see Andres. That's a really good point. I don't know that he's a must-hold. It's Brissett. Like, if DPJ's getting 11 targets, I don't think that Njoku's got much of a ceiling that's worth, like, holding on to. I'd rather have, like, cheat code Taysom Hill potentially running that in. Yeah, I'm worried about Njoku rest of the season. Because he's one of the guys that should benefit from Brissett. So if he's not going to, I don't know that Watson's going to ever really hit him. So, yeah, I'm there. Bokey. Pick up Curtis Samuel for Bateman, Mooney, Elijah Moore. What do you think about his performance going forward? I would not drop any of those 3, but the fact that I even have to weigh it, those are just some of the most impressive potential breakout candidates. Bateman obviously already showed up. Like, he only ran 70% of the routes, so a little concerning, but he's a player. He's here to stay. Moore is a stud. I don't trust his quarterback play at all. Samuel's definitely going to see his steadier volume. I can't drop any of those talents, though. I need to see. They're all so good, Bakey, that I can't drop those 3. Even though I really like Samuel, I can't do it. Andrea, hey, how are you? Do I trade Dillon and Pittman for Dalvin? Ooh. You got the depth to pull it off, Seth. But in a 14-team league, depth is even more important. And, like, Dalvin is the type of guy that, sure, once he's in that lineup, it looks so sexy to have him in CMC. But that is quite a fragile backfield. Whereas I think I stay pat. Like, Dillon saw more opportunities than Aaron Jones. He might be more valuable than Aaron Jones this year. Could happen. So, yeah, I'd be worried. I did. That was a typo, Doomba. My fault. That's why I gave 2 honorable mentions for you. Consider Hilliard number 20 and bump everybody else out one. I saw it as soon as I got to it. My fault. Bakey, pick up Dotson, Samuel for either. No, I don't think so. I know you just asked that one. I do love this Washington passing attack, which is crazy to say with Carson Wentz. I think both of them have some really nice upside, but those 3 guys are just too talented to drop. Trade Dotson for Etienne. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I love Dotson, but Etienne is, even with Robinson there, such a ridiculous prospect, and he looked really good on his limited touches. Yeah, I'd rather have Etienne than Dotson. Definitely, J-Land. Pick 3, Sutton, Waddle, Babe Davis, Lazard, Edmonds, and Dillon. So for starting this week, I don't know, Brendan. I have not done my rankings. I haven't looked at the matchups. But off the top of my head, I'm not benching Babe Davis. Dillon, I'm probably not benching. And it comes down to Sutton or Waddle for me. Sutton gets Houston, so probably him. That's where I'm leaning. Matt Ryan or Wentz to have to back up Stafford. I'd stay Matt Ryan. Wentz, if you're 1 week streaming and facing Detroit this week, probably him. Although Matt Ryan gets the Jags. No, I'm going Matt Ryan. Sell Kamara, right? I don't think so. What would you sell him for? I mean, if you sell him for Kamara price tag of entering the season, then yeah, of course. Like, am I worried? Sure. That rib injury, or what if it lingers, was not a great performance. I'm worried about it. Yeah. But are you going to sell him for a fucking sack of potatoes because he had one bad week? Like, don't do that. I think Kamara is going to be fine. I do. If you could sell him for Kamara price, though, yeah, I would also do that. But you probably can't do that. So, no, I would not be selling Kamara. I have Najee, Etienne, and Breece Hall. My receivers are Judy, Bateman, Elijah Moore. I'm scared, Najee. Is there anyone I should shop? I mean, sure. I can't answer that question. That's like way too vague in general. But, yeah, I'd be worried about Najee. I'm worried for sure. Are we actually going to see the year 6 breakout? I mean, he broke out in 2020. He was a top 25 wide receiver. He was good. He saw the second most touches among all receivers, including carries. So I think he's fine, especially for free right now. He's on the waiver wire. You didn't have to pay anything to get him. Go get him. As a Mixon owner, would you pick up P. Ryan as a handcuff? If you have the bench space, sure. But like, there's so many. I just went through 20 names, Howland, that I would rather have than P. Ryan as a handcuff. There's so much more juicy upside out there, in my opinion. Like, give me Jalen Warren if you're really looking for a handcuff. We all know Belichick's losing it, but he cemented that when he passed on. Yeah, seriously, Renfro and Kyle Phillips, like, the one wide receiver position he could draft was the white slot guys for Bill Belichick. The fact that he didn't draft either of those elite white slot guys, yeah, he's losing it. Talk to me about Trey Lance. He looked lost in India. Again, that weather, though. I mean, I'm not going to chalk it up entirely to the weather, especially now that they have Jimmy G breathing down his neck, too. Like, one more bad performance might be all it takes. They're facing a shit bum team this week. I forget who it is. Seattle. Maybe a beastly team. Who for the knows after they just beat the Broncos? Beastly, yeah, right. If they lose because of Trey Lance, I wouldn't be shocked to see Jimmy G starting. So I would put it at a solid, like, 6.5, 7 on the panic meter. I still think the Konami upside's there, but like Marcus Mariota had just as much carry upside. Geno Smith had just as much carry upside. So if we're just chasing rushing to chase rushing, like I don't know. I'm worried. 7. I put it at a 7 out of 10. I'm a little worried. Yeah, I'm worried. 3 guarantees in left. Death taxes, Wolf touting Jeff Wilson. As I said, I'm actually sitting here kind of saying pump the brakes a little bit, which is shocking for Jeff Wilson. I do think he's going to get the first crack, as does Grant. I just know that he won me a title 2 years ago, and I always cling to that pride of like, I know this guy could do it. Maybe we'll never see that guy again. He's going to get the first crack to show he can still be that guy. And if he does, he's going to be the best pickup of 2022. I'm betting on the latter. I don't think it happens. And I think Jordan Mason really well could be. Like, Jordan Mason just feels like Shanahan. It does. I don't have much like empirical evidence or anything to back that up. Just like Eli Mitchell became Shanahan, Jordan Mason becomes Shanahan. They become one. They merge, and that's it. It's such a fucking fuck fest. How much fab for Alberto? None. I don't want Alberto. I mean, like a 4 tight end rotation? No, thanks. Start Lamar or Stafford week 2. Lamar. I'm not going to do sit-start questions right now, though. That's later on in the week. That's tomorrow night. Instead of Thursday night. Reminder. We'll be live then. And that thumbs up. Continue to help us grow. I'm going to keep going for another 10 minutes. So if you want a guaranteed answer, you got something you have to hear, that super chat or a call-in's the only way to do it. I should be able to, but we have like 20 questions left. So I'm going to start hitting these fast. If you want a detailed answer, you want a guaranteed answer, though, super chat, so greatly appreciated. It helps support the site, or jump on the call line, which is pinned in the comments somewhere, I hope. What's going on, Tomas from Panama? Great to see you. Another year of fantasy. Love it. Scam makers, too. I love you, Thomas. Javante, love him. 12 targets. Scam makers, Hines. I would bench Scam. Yeah, no way I'm starting Scam until I see something better than what we saw. Yeah, absolutely play Hines. Much, much safer. Zeke going downhill? Yeah, absolutely. Every Cowboy goes downhill. Scoring opportunities, open lanes, everything goes downhill. Benches Zeke, Hines, Pierce, Wilson, Michael Thomas, Renfro. Drop any for those guys? No, I think you got to keep holding them, and Wilson's still your number one bench play. So I really do like Landry, but I can't drop any of those guys. Looking at the matchup, start Hurts or Stafford? Hurts, easy. I had Henry, Javante, Etienne, Carter. That's too much for me. I can't answer that right now. Trim down your questions, guys. Get it to the point. It's 8:10. I got 10 minutes for you. Pick 3. Sutton, Waddle, Gabe Davis. I already answered that for you. So not going to repeat that one. Davis, Sutton, Waddle. No, Davis, Dylan, Sutton. And now putting you in timeout for repeating the question. But you're not banned, just timeout. Do you think Zeke is going downhill? Yes. I'm putting you in timeout for repeating the question. All righty. Do you think Kmet bounces back, or would you say Everett or Hurst? I would much rather have Everett or Hurst. I'm not. Why? What's Kmet? What's the reason for waiting it out? The rain? Yeah. Okay. Sure. I get it. The rain impacted everybody, but give me the upside of Everett or Hurst scoring touchdowns. They were both well involved too, not just touchdown or bust type of thing. Jordan Mason, baby. Love it. Love Jordan Mason. Big into him. Think Kamara and Gabe Davis for Dalvin is worth it. Dalvin's not splitting more than you think. He had like 72% of carries, ran, 16% target share. I actually don't hate that if your receivers can sustain the loss of Gabe Davis, but I really love Gabe, so I wouldn't want to do that unless you're very, very deep at receiver. I love Kirk. Kirk's going to be a target hog salsa. So is Deontay. That's tough. I'd probably go Kirk, though. The clearer cut number one there. Who should I bench, Judy, Thomas, or Mike? Not Mike. No Keenan. Probably a shootout game on Thursday. I probably bench, and that's Mike Williams that you're not benching. Probably bench Mike Thomas. It's just the most crowded situation. Not benching Judy against Houston. Drop Wandale for any of those guys. Yes. I would say they're in the order that you should look at him, other than Robbie Anderson above Warren. But yes, Wandale should go for any of them. If you really need the receiver help, I would go for Samuel or Robbie Anderson. Yeah. Dotson, Dylan, Pierce, or Mooney for the flex? Dylan, probably. Would you rather have Etienne or Robinson? It's too early to make that call. Gun to head, I think Etienne with the receiving work and just more explosive talent, maybe. But they ended up ranking right next to each other on the rest of the season big board. 909, the QB scored more than 10. I love to hear it. I love that the curse is broken for you. Trade Montgomery and Keenan Allen for Kamara. Yeah, I would probably do that, Frazier. I'd be buying low on Kamara. Now, some people are saying, should I sell? I would be going after it. I think it's still Kamara. I don't know. Did he look that bad? I kind of, but it's still Kamara. So you need a solid running back too. Your best bet is Jeff Wilson. But if it's not him, it might be Jordan Mason. Wilson's going to get the start this week, so he's the safest start for you there. But I would go to him or Jamaal Williams. Drop Lance or Tua for Wentz. I almost threw up, yeah. I would maybe Tua. I didn't really look that impressive. The Dolphins with all those weaponry still didn't put up anything crazy. So, I would drop Tua maybe for Wentz if you're starting him. I would probably stick with it and just give those guys another week. Should I trade Tyreek and CEH for AJB and Dylan? Yep, I would do that. I think AJB and Tyreek are neck and neck, and I like Dylan more than CEH. I think you'd be selling high on CEH. I think it's a good move. Would you trade Kupp for Mike Evans and James Conner? Need an RB2? If you need the RB2, I guess. I would see if you can get – maybe you can get Wilson on the waiver wire and you don't need to, and see if he pans out. But I hate trading Kupp. Lock in 25 points a week. That being said, Evans without Godwin these next 3-4 weeks is also going to be about 15 to 20 a week too. So if you're that desperate, Ethan Pugh for the running back too, it's not an unfair deal. I'd like to see if you can piece it together until then, but I totally get it. Curtis FAAB amount, I'd say a nice 10 to 15 B-dot. Lock in wide receivers, have solid running backs. Benches Sanders and Carter. I'm not in Sanders. I'd sell high. That might be the last touchdown he scores. All three, running backs score touchdowns. That's all you need to know. It's all over the place. And last question: start Lance or Stafford? Probably going Stafford against the Falcons and banking on a rebound. Mark is where I'm leaning right now. All righty, Wolfpack. Thanks so much again for being here for your waiver wire. Tons of you guys on your way out. Please consider hitting that thumbs up button. Please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a stream. We'll be live tomorrow. Moving the Thursday night stream up a day because, again, I have open house on Thursday. So I want to make sure I can get your sit-start questions in before that barn burner of a shootout on Thursday night. So we will not be live Thursday. We'll be live tomorrow, Wednesday, at 6:45. Me and the Truth answering all your questions, giving you your usual higher, lower Hail Mary, your preview of the week. So if you want, make sure you're here tomorrow, 6:45. On that way out, consider hitting that thumbs up button to help us grow. Consider to subscribe if you like what you heard and you haven't already. Be so appreciated. You can find me at Roto Street Wolf on Twitter. You can find all our content at RotoStreetJournal.com, including my rest of season rankings, our trade value chart, our waiver wire pickups of the week. So much good stuff always coming out at RotoStreetJournal.com, where we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. So in a world full of fantasy sheep, be the wolf, guys. And check out No House Advantage. Code RSJ. Later.